Hi folks, let's talk about UFOs. In one of my recent videos, I put this book up behind me. Sometimes just for my own amusement, I'll turn one of the books behind me outward so you can see the cover. And somebody immediately sent me an email about UFOs, which I thought was a kind of interesting email, and I emailed you back so we can continue chatting. But I thought, I don't know, maybe people think I'm trying to say flying saucers are real by putting this in the background. Actually, this is a book of mostly visuals of old UFO books and things. It's got some really wacky stuff in it. I bought this at the Rough Trade store, one of the Rough Trade stores in London a couple of years ago, and I was mostly interested in the visuals of it. Thought it was pretty funny. But I'm not a true believer in UFOs, and I mean, I'm sure there's something to the phenomenon, but the idea that it's extraterrestrial visitations seems unlikely to me. Not impossible, but unlikely. And most of the reason it seems unlikely to me, highly unlikely, is that the best spokespeople, or what's been held up as the best spokespeople for it, always seem to just fall flat for me. Like I was watching videos by Stephen Greer for a while until I realized that Stephen Greer just kind of talks and talks and talks as if he's going to reveal something, and the reveal never comes. Same with Stanton Friedman. But then I think, well, maybe this is the problem of things like this. Maybe it's the same as in Eastern spirituality, where like the superstars of the Eastern spirituality scene are the worst spokespeople for it and are actually pretty much ruining the whole thing. You know, your Deepak Chopras and people like that. Whereas there's a lower tier of people like Shohaku Okumura or Stephen Batchelor who are actually saying something worthwhile, but they don't get nearly the press of the superstars. So maybe that's what's going on in ufology, UFOology, or whatever you're calling it, that the people who are held up as the top tier UFO people are the Deepak Chopras of ufology. And if anybody knows where the Shohaku Okumura, Stephen Batchelor of UFOology is, let me know, and I'd take a look at that person and see what they have to say. The funniest story I have about Buddhism and UFOs is Tim McCarthy was talking about how he was at a lecture given by his teacher Kobun Chino, and Kobun Chino was asked by somebody in the audience about UFOs and aliens. And Kobun pointed to Tim and said, you better ask Tim. And Tim was like, why are you asking? Why should they ask me? And Kobun said, he reads a lot of comic books. So that's kind of the general way it's looked at within the Buddhist community. I remember bringing it up to Nishijima Roshi one time, and he pointed out some story that he'd read, when he was a teenager or something, about Martians coming to Earth and finding the ruins of Earth civilization, and he thought that was an interesting idea that we might destroy ourselves or something. But he wasn't real into UFOs. As I've mentioned on this channel before, I'm fascinated by the idea or the notion that there might be extraterrestrial civilizations. It's very interesting to speculate about what a non-human civilization might look like and might do, especially if it's a very advanced non-human civilization. I wonder if maybe the reason we are not seeing evidence of such civilizations is that we don't quite yet understand what an advanced civilization would look like. We tend to look at our own civilization and tend to look at it from this very strongly materialistic point of view and say, okay, we've gone this far with materialism and this philosophy of materialism as our basis, and we've invented all this great technology. Well, if we keep advancing like that, in 10,000 years we will get to, whatever, and you can speculate wildly. I kind of think it's going to be different. I think human civilization might have reached the end or near the end of a materialistic outlook, and we may need to go somewhere else. And this is kind of Nishijima Roshi's contention too, that we we're first steeped in this idea of idealism, where everything that was going on in our heads and spirituality was very big and tended to drive human society, and that went on for, I don't know, 1,000 years or whatever. And then in the Renaissance in Europe, people, as Nishijima likes to put it, discovered they had bodies, by which he meant that we discovered the material world as a place that we could interact with and improve our lot by improving our material circumstances. And we've gone on that way for a long time, but now we've kind of reached a point where we understand that the utopias we dreamed of, the materialistic-based utopias, are probably not going to happen. There are still people who hold out hope, but I think that's wrong hope. And a lot of people sort of urge this return to spirituality, return to the idealism of the past. And again, whenever I say idealism, I worry that people might see it as a synonym for optimism, and I mean philosophical idealism, which says that ideas or spirit are the important thing. And people urge a return to that, often see Buddhism as a way to return to that, but I don't think Buddhism is like that. Buddhism is skeptical of the materialistic outlook, certainly, and we're all pretty much aware of this, but it's also skeptical of the idealistic or spiritual worldview, too, as being... Buddhism tends to try to toe the middle way, the line between both of them, and acknowledge that there are aspects of materialism that are good and useful, there are aspects of spirituality and idealism that are good and useful, but following one path or the other exclusively is not going to go the way we want it to. So I would think perhaps an advanced alien civilization, in order to have survived its infancy, which would be the sort of situation we're in now, would have to come to that sort of way of looking at things too. Would have to say, well, maybe what we need is an integration between sort of our spiritual or idealistic or non-material side of our existence and the material side of our existence, and trying to integrate that. And they would probably advance technologically. I would think they would continue to advance technologically, but they would also have an advance in, I hate to say spiritual areas, but it would be an advance in terms of trying to find a balance between the two. So I'm not really watching the skies for UFOs. I used to when I was a kid, but I wouldn't mind seeing one, and I don't think it's impossible that we are being visited or even contacted. But see, the deal breaker for me for that is Donald Trump is president, right? So if there ever was a guy who would blab government secrets about UFOs on Twitter or something, it would be Trump, right? And he hasn't done it. So I kind of think either they're not telling Trump, which is possible, or there's nothing to tell. I don't know. You can refute me, and I'd actually enjoy a discussion of people trying to refute me on this one. And so please go ahead, do your worst. I will be in Europe I'm leaving Sunday, and these are the places I'm going to be. I finally fixed that town in Finland, and I added another Finnish town, which you'll see Turku above. That's the first place I'm going, and we're going to be showing Zombie Bounty Hunter MD, a rare public screening of Piruz Kalea's great film Zombie Bounty Hunter MD will be shown in Turku, and I'll be there to discuss it afterwards. And then all of the other events you see are open to anybody who wants to come, and please come, because we need you there, and sometimes it's a little lonely. We'll see how it goes this year. Last few years has actually been pretty well attended, but there were tours when I went to Europe and were not very well attended. I also depend on your PayPal and Patreon support continuing, and because I'm not making money in Europe, I mean, it's a slight advance over losing money at the last couple of tours, so that's nice, but it's certainly nothing to bring home and live on after I get back. It's nowhere near that. So I still depend on your support. Thank you very much. See you later. Bye.